to start this off, because we are riddled with anxiety, if you are 100% PNT, you have absolutely nothing to worry about whatsoever outside of fraud, okay? You already made it. Congrats to you. Now, I know someone is going to say, technically, it's not protected till 20... Listen, shut up, okay? No one wants to hear you. That is fear-mongering, all right? PNT is safe, and you will not find a rater taking anyone's permanent and total rating away, with the exception of fraud or a blatant mistake made by the VA. And I have seen that one time, and when the mistake by the VA is made, it happens within 2 to 3 weeks. So it's very, very rare and not common, okay? You're not going to go 8 years PNT and all of a sudden wake up and it's gone. That's not a real thing, right? Now, everyone else who isn't PNT, that same concept, that same thing applies to your static conditions. If you want to know which conditions you have are static, I'm going to link another video below to show you that process, and it's fairly simple, okay? The audience this video is really for are those whose conditions are not static, especially those who are 100% combined and not permanent and total. PNT simply means that your static conditions add up to 95% plus, and that's using VA math, all right? So the question is, how much should you go to the VA healthcare to protect your rating? First, I hate this question. I absolutely hate it because it implies we're about to game the game, and that's simply just not the case. If you have a condition, let's say mental health at 30%, and it's not static, then I would absolutely recommend you seek healthcare from an evidence perspective. I always recommend healthcare for healthcare reasons, but this video is not about that, all right? This is about evidence. Now, do you need to use VA healthcare? That answer is no. But if you choose to go private healthcare for your conditions that are not static, then you need to be prepared to give the VA those records, because a future exam will happen, not if, it will happen at some point between 2 to 5 years, and evidence is what's going to be used to make that decision to lower your rating, keep your rating the same, or increase that rating and potentially change that condition from not being static to static, which is the goal, right? Evidence couldn't be more important in this scenario versus any other time. I've seen the VA use a lack of evidence as a reason to reduce a condition that is not static, and in that instance, that veteran had nothing to lean on because medical evidence is the key. It's the cornerstone to VA compensation. But in your case, because you are informed and educated, hopefully watching this channel, we now know that we need to gather evidence from start to finish. So making appointments for your with your healthcare team to talk about your condition, and in this case, we're using the mental health condition connected at 30%. And hey, if your condition genuinely improves and you're off medication, life is great now that you've been out for 2 years after transitioning back from military back into society as a civilian, then hey, good on you. That is something that you should celebrate, absolutely, okay? But if the opposite occurs, which by the way is very highly likely, then you will need evidence to not only protect your rating, but potentially push for an increase and reach that sweet PNT mark that comes with some very pretty rad benefits that are certainly deserved, okay? Now, I already know someone is going to ask, how do they find out if their condition is static or not, even after I link the video in the pinned comments. So here's a quick cheat code for that, right? If your decision letter doesn't say you have a routine future exam, then you're good. Now back to VA healthcare, right? So this really applies to VA healthcare specifically because the VA has access to those records. I want you to be mindful of the words that come out of your mouth, all right? First, always be truthful no matter what. At the same time, don't downplay your symptoms either. Listen, we aren't in the military anymore. Your NCO and your peers aren't going to shun you for seeking medical treatment. That life is over for you. and now it's time to speak up. So if you are struggling to connect with your friends and family on an emotional level, or you aren't able to show sympathy to your children, or connect with your children, you're having panic attacks, you're having depressive episodes, whatever that looks like for you, you need to talk about those symptoms. Now, I'm using the 30% service-connected mental health as an example here, but that same concept applies to any and all conditions that are not static. Seek healthcare for healthcare reasons, for sure, but also for evidentiary reasons, because the VA will schedule, not if, they will schedule a routine future exam, and that condition will be assessed. You either have the evidence or you don't, right? And in this scenario for routine future exams, the only thing that matters is current medical evidence. It's already service connected. That's not the issue. What's at hand is your current symptoms. So let's look at the flip side of that, okay? If it's the first time since being rated you're talking about your mental health during that routine future exam, assuming the VA even scheduled an in-person exam in the first place, right? And doesn't make that decision based on a lack of evidence, which is totally possible, by the way, then you are stuck in the mud and should expect a reduction. I'm just going to be real with you, okay? If the first time you're speaking about this with a medical professional is when that routine future exam is happening, that is not good. And honestly, it is what it is at that point, okay? Too late, so sad. But let's talk about the worst case scenario. It's already too late for you, and you've been reduced last week or a few years ago. Don't worry, the world is not going to end, at least not yet. I would treat that condition that is still service connected, by the way, right? Probably at 0 or whatever percentage the VA gave after that reduction as a normal, everyday increase type claim. Meaning, go speak with your healthcare provider now, and that's same thing applies, either VA or private. And again, if it's private, you gotta give the VA access to those records or upload those specific records with your claim. Then submit the increase. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, nothing to sweat, okay? It's extremely easy to submit an increase claim. You are already service connected, and that's the hard part. Now all you gotta do is prove your current symptoms, which again, easy peasy, okay? Now, the C&P examiner becomes the variable right here, and at that point, which is always harp on medical evidence even for increases. Because if you are lowballed and you have the evidence, it's a pretty easy win with a higher level review, and in fact, most of the HLRs that are won by the veteran are increased claims because they have the evidence. Now, if you don't have the evidence for the increase, then whatever that C&P examiner reports during the exam and sends to the VA, that becomes your current evidence, okay? And your testimony is not going to outweigh the C&P examiner, especially in a higher level review. It might at a board of appeals if everything lines up and makes sense, but that's a whole other story, right? So you either do the legwork yourself or you rely on the C&P examiner, and that is completely your choice.